Welcome everyone to Tarot Journeys with Guy. Hope everybody's doing good. Today, we're going to look at the lockdowns, but mostly addressing sort of the beta testing that's taking place. And this is something that I've been alluding to in previous readings. The deep state bad actors in the other side, they're battling. And once, there's shots being fired. Now, the next one is this thing with the lockdown. And it's more, I think, important for people to sort of recognize, like right now, that what they are doing is beta testing, like what's going to happen next, because a part of their op is failing, right? The indictment part of their whole thing is failing. Stuff is coming out about the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and a lot of things too around the vaccine, right? And so it's like the beta test. We're going through the beta test of the climate scenario and what will happen there, right? And like these are like little testing zones for them to see how far they can push people, right? And it's the same thing with just about everything. A war scenario is another example of like shutting people down, locking them in, controlling them. So like we went through this already, and it was like a big test. It was a big beta test to see how far we could be pushed. See, and that's the thing. Like, what are we beta? Like, we're being beta tested again. What is the next scenario? Are there going to be more lockdowns? Let's ask. Let's check that out. Let's just get a little insight, a little guidance, and see what comes up, and then we'll narrow it down and do a couple of spreads. The Five of Pentacles comes up in the present moment right now, right? And so it's this is kind of an interesting card, because the Five of Pentacles really talks more about what's within than what's without, right? So it's like, it's the same, like kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning here about what they're putting out into the public. And it has a lot to do with, so we don't see what's inside, right? So they're putting out something so that we are distracted, or so that we don't see what is actually like part of their plan. Now, I think like this thing with like the lockdowns, this is an intrinsic part of their overall plan. Now, for some of us that have been around for a while, like what we're witnessing is them, the deep state, their plan, their long-term plan. Some would say like their 16-year plan being dismantled. Okay. And so some of it, and what we're witnessing now, is part of the play out of some of those efforts, right? And so like a big part of it were a series of lockdowns. So we were to go through a series of these, right? And so it's not so much like that this is being put out there. Yeah, this is part of their plan, and it's every single psyop and false flag that these guys create is part of a shock test or a beta test to progress the next step of their planning, operations, actions, right? And it's always this testing thing. So, and that's a big part of it. They're always putting stuff out there to see where it moves. Like information will be put out into the internet, and there's analysts and there's people there to watch this, and also they have programs to monitor the data around this. And this thing is like they're trying to they potentially might try to reignite the whole thing with what they started with, what we saw with the pandemic. That's kind of what this is talking about with the Four of Swords above. But it's also sort of like, the truth of the matter is these guys are sort of like, they know that their plans are being kiboshed, that they're sort of on their death knell, beginning of the end for them. But what it is they're trying to create areas where they can retreat into. And this is kind of what I was talking about in previous readings. They need a break. So they're trying to present things that will create that sort of pause. So that's what we're going to see, is like when we see one of their ops kind of failing, they're going to try to pull something else out, right? And this is what we're seeing. It's like fear tactics that are being spread out, right? And we're being tested. We're being tested to see who's going to accept it, who wants this, who's going to fight back, that kind of thing, right? It's also part of like this thing that they do continuously on the internet for those that, and there's this battle for the control of the internet that's going on. All of this stuff is so tied together. Are they going to pull another one? They may. And this is, I think, where instead of feeding into the propaganda, but more about being aware of like their tactics is kind of like really necessary. This thing of like how the deep state have created situations where they have people in situations where they create the problem. They have people that are there reacting to the problem, and then they have people there that will be there to resolve the problem. And it's this trifecta of like always having these people in place and creating like what we see with politics all over the world, this idea of there is a uniparty amongst these elected parties. They all have similar policies, right? And people are starting to notice this, okay? So that's what it is. It's the attack. It's kind of like what Klaus Schwab had said in 2016 and upward when he was pushing his whole Great Reset, that we would be impoverished and that the world stage would become more frantic and crazier. And that's what they've created. They've created like this seeming perception that it is like this, right? And yeah, they want to see if another one will work. That's right. And they want to see where the information goes. Okay, let's see what else comes up here. Yeah, it has a lot to do with Trump, actually, because the Trump indictment is failing. And it's only incriminating them further and further, right? And that's what we're going to see. They're going to continue to attack him, and whatever doesn't work, they're going to turn it on to the people. And like, but the thing is, the world has changed. Like, they're not everybody's sort of on the same page with some of these things as well, right? And that's kind of part of it. It's they're trying to find sort of things to unify people around, but to continue their sort of plan, right? But the thing is, what's developing is this other plan to get rid of these guys. And that's what they're reacting to more than having the other side react, having us react to them, right? So this is what's good. This is part of that taking things back. We just can't buy into the fear and the propaganda and sort of being able to recognize it. Now, like it, oh man, people are still kind of glued to the media. This is the thing, right? And they still kind of have a hold on people. Like the mainstream, the majority of people still are kind of hooked on what I call a media vision, okay? But see, it's such a funny thing because it's not something that people per se take seriously, especially now because they're not trusting of the so-called experts, but yet they still look to it as sort of like a source, right? And so this is one of these frontline battles. I mean, this is also why Trump is kind of like not taking part in these debates and kind of going with the whole Tucker Carlson thing and just kind of moving away from the mainstream element. Now I know Tucker Carlson it's the same thing, right? Like this guy's mainstream media. He's probably a breakaway. He's a deep stater in some way, for sure. but yet he's on the Patriot side now. He's been burnt, right? But yet he could be controlled opposition. That's what we're dealing with. And that's actually what we have to sort of be more understanding of than what's being projected at us, right? And like, our job is to be sort of present in our world and aware of what's going on around us in our world, but also that is like the same when we're online. Freedom of speech is very important right now. Like that's probably the main thing. And not falling into the traps that are laid out by the intelligence people and these people that are trying, like the globalists that are trying to hook people, right? And that's kind of what part of this is, okay? And it is a take back. It is about taking back the media and everything like that. What they want to do is they kind of want to use the old COVID thing to lock us down before everything kind of comes out about the vaccine, because everything is kind of coming out and people really should not comply, period. Mandates aren't laws, and that's what people need to realize. And that these guys are using fear tactics to scare people, right? And that's a big part of it. We need to be out front, out and present in our worlds and really addressing this stuff and like calling it where it needs to be called out. Yeah, if they can't get a war, they certainly are going to try a lockdown of some sort, of some nature. Yeah, that's part of their plan, man. And that's something that we need to be aware of. And this is going to be a continual thing, like for the next, approaching winter, getting into the winter time, right? But the thing is, it's the pushback from the people, right? This is what's so needed, is us continuing the pushback and calling this stuff out and collecting information, doing our research. But we gotta be careful. We're in a 5th generational war, meaning we are being utilized as objects in that war. We are being weaponized. And information is being weaponized. All aspects are utilized, everything. Okay, one more, and then we're gonna close it off. I think we should be sort of proud of ourselves, all of us that have been sort of pushing back, that that this is working, and that we got to continue to do so, and not to grow tired. All of their little ops are kind of falling apart. Yeah, and it's like, keep your eyes. So here, and this card here flipped out when we were doing that. Sometimes the court cards are a little tricky to read. There's 2 actually right here, but this one is kind of interesting because that popped out of the deck, right? And like fire inspiration, I always she's kind of an interesting one because she's, it's not like the other fire. She's more settled, right? This is like the balanced sense of fire, but she's, she's also kind of like, she can be a warrior, but she's also a wise ruler. She's a good mother. She's very well-rounded, right? But like has the gift of being able to inspire others. That's a big thing. And like, so it's like keeping your eye on some of these women that are fiery, that are pushing, like, that are on the patriot side of things. And I'm thinking like in the EU, like there's a couple of women, I don't know where they're from, but they're pushing against the whole COVID thing. And these are some of the ones that are going to be forefront if they try to do another lockdown, that kind of thing. These are the inspirational people, right? Because they don't give up, right? There's a couple in the States too, I guess. But it's also some of these like really decrepit ones too, that are also like the globalist deep staters that are trying to push some of this crap. But I'm more thinking on the inspiration level and like where the real push is. And so like, that's kind of what we got to keep our eyes on, is like the real prize and not the psyops, not the distraction that's coming out, right? But like, that's the thing. It's like the more that their weaponized lawfare situation fails, they're going to do stuff like that, because that's kind of what's on the target right now. They don't want Trump running at all. Same with RFK Jr. But Trump for sure. Beta testing the kids too. This is like the children, where like they're really kind of trying to study like where some of the younger generations are going to move, because like they're kind of starting to slip out of their control. They want to know if it's actually been working. Okay, and that's kind of part of it. A lot of the beta testing actually does target the kids right now, and that might be that like the next, like if there's a pandemic of some sort, or if they release another Chimera virus, it's going to target children. Okay. The other thing is they're really going after subconscious. The moon represents the subconscious, right? So this is all hitting us on a subconscious level. So like all they have to do is mention lockdown, and subconsciously we all kind of go into a certain sort of area, right, in our consciousness, but it's not good because it had a negative effect, right? That's what they're trying to do, right? So that, I mean, I hope that helps sort of explain a little bit. It was a little bit convoluted, but yet it kind of makes a little bit of sense, right? Like this kind of the nature of what they're doing. They're using a profound understanding of psychology and the occult, like put together, right? And that's like where a lot of the everyday people, like online and just in the world, run short, right? Because we're not all psychologists and not all occultists and study this stuff and like have hundreds of years of history and tradition and all of this stuff to back it up, right? Which some of these guys do. Okay. And that's what we're facing against, right? So very positive, like it's very important to remain positive right now, to be sort of inspirational, because everybody else is feeling it. We're all being subjected to the same thing, right? So it doesn't help if we're feeling down, if we're all feeling down around each other. We can really help another person by trying to see the light side around this. And that's kind of what we're trying to say is like, hey, look, they're pushing this stuff out. That's the nature of our times right now. And that's something to really be aware of. Thank you, everyone. That was great. I hope you enjoyed. Please hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you hit that notification bell. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share. I hope every one of you has a wonderful day or evening, and take care. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.